The Council's arrogant Supreme Commander Vexthera stood before the massive holographic display, her forearms gesturing dismissively at the rotating image of a small blue planet. The War Council chamber of the Zephyrian High Command buzzed with the subtle harmonics of various alien species communicating through their translation implants. Representatives from 12 conquered civilizations sat in their specialized environmental pods, all focused on what their leaders considered the most routine military briefing of the decade. General Being's Vexthera's voice carried the authority of someone who had personally overseen the subjugation of 47 worlds. I present to you the third planet of the Sol system. Our target, Earth. The hologram zoomed in, showing continents, oceans, and the scattered lights of human cities. Intelligence Officer Krellinen, a spider-like being with 8 sensor-enhanced eyes, activated his data streams. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level, primitive chemical propulsion, basic nuclear capabilities, and rudimentary electromagnetic communication systems. Their most advanced spacecraft barely reached their own moon, a ripple of what could only be described. As alien laughter passed through the council, General Morduk, whose species had conquered 3 star systems before falling to Zephyrian might, leaned forward in his crystalline containment unit. Commander, why are we even holding a formal briefing for such primitives? My homeworld's children could conquer them with toy weapons. Vexthera's mandibles clicked in amusement. Protocol, General. The Galactic Dominion Code requires formal assessment of all inhabited worlds, regardless of their ... limitations. She gestured again, and the hologram shifted to show Earth's military installations. Our preliminary scans indicate approximately 200 nations, all maintaining separate military forces, no unified command structure, no coordinated defense strategy, and their weapons technology is at least 500 standard years behind our most basic equipment. Intelligence Officer Krellinen's eyes flickered as he processed more data. Commander, their largest explosive devices generate approximately 50 megatons of destructive force. Our standard orbital bombardment drones exceed that by a factor of 200. Their fastest aircraft achieve velocities of roughly 3,000 kilometers per hour. Our slowest attack fighters operate at 50,000 kilometers per hour in atmospheric conditions. The council members exchanged glances through their various sensory organs. This wasn't just going to be a conquest. It was going to be a complete mismatch. What about their space-based defenses? Asked Councillor Yethra, her tentacles writhing with anticipation. Negligible, Krellinen responded immediately. They possess several hundred artificial satellites, mostly for communication and observation. No weapons platforms, no defensive grids, no early warning systems capable of detecting our approach until we're already in their atmosphere. Vexthera activated another display showing Earth's military organization. Their military doctrine is fragmented across hundreds of different command structures. They've never faced a unified external threat, so they've never developed unified defensive capabilities. Our psychological warfare specialists predict complete societal collapse within hours of initial contact. The Supreme Commander walked around. The holographic Earth, her movements predatory and confident. Phase 1 will commence with the destruction of their communication satellites. Without their primitive electromagnetic signals, their scattered military forces will be unable to coordinate any response. Phase 2 involves targeted strikes on their major population centers to eliminate leadership and break civilian morale. Phase 3 is a simple mop-up operation. Time estimate for complete planetary submission. General Mordok asked. 72 hours, maximum, Vexera replied without hesitation. Honestly, I expect organized resistance to collapse within the first day. These humans have never faced anything beyond their own petty territorial disputes. The intelligence data continued flowing across multiple displays. Human military vehicles crawled across the screens like primitive insects, tanks that moved slower than Zephyrian cargo haulers, aircraft that would be outmaneuvered by civilian transport pods, and naval vessels that wouldn't survive a single hit from the smallest Zephyrian weapon system. Commander, Counselor, Zekthol, interrupted his gaseous form, shimmering with curiosity. Our xenobiological teams have analyzed human physiology. They appear to be remarkably fragile. Single atmosphere dependence, limited temperature tolerance, vulnerable to numerous chemical agents, and an average lifespan of less than 100 standard years. How did such a weak species even achieve spaceflight? Vexathara's mandibles clicked again. Luck, Counselor. Pure evolutionary luck. They happened to develop on a planet with abundant resources and no serious predators. They've never been tested by real adversity, never forced to innovate beyond their comfort zone. They're soft, complacent, and completely unprepared for what's coming. The tactical assessment continued for another hour. Every metric, every analysis, every projection pointed to the same inevitable conclusion. Humanity would fall faster than any species in recorded galactic history. Their technology was laughably primitive. Their military doctrine was chaotic. Their society was fractured, and their physical capabilities were pathetic compared to the warrior races of the Zephyrian Empire. Fleet composition, Vexthera asked her tactical coordinator. 47 attack cruisers, 12 orbital bombardment platforms, and 8 troop transport vessels carrying 100,000 ground forces, came the precise response. Honestly, Commander, we could probably accomplish this mission with 1/10 of that force. Better to be certain, Vexthera replied. The Dominion expects thorough conquests, and I won't have our record tarnished by overconfidence. Besides, the excess firepower will serve as an excellent demonstration to any other primitive worlds considering resistance. The final phase of the briefing covered post-conquest administration. Human survivors would be relocated to designated reservation zones. Their industrial capabilities would be assessed and integrated into Zephyrian production systems. Their planet would be strip-mined for resources, with particular attention to their abundant water reserves and rare earth elements. Estimated human survivors after pacification, asked Counselor Yath. Between 10 and 15% of current population. Intelligence Officer Krelinan calculated dispassionately. Standard Dominion protocol for primitive species. Enough to maintain basic labor functions, not enough to pose any future threat. As the briefing concluded, the council members began filing out of the chamber, their various forms of locomotion creating a bizarre parade of galactic conquest. Conversations buzzed about shore leave arrangements and victory celebrations. Several senior officers had already begun planning how to divide Earth's resources among their personal fleets. Supreme Commander Vexthara remained alone in the chamber, studying the holographic Earth one final time. She had personally overseen 47 planetary conquests. She had broken civilizations that had fought galactic wars for millennia. She had crushed species with technology that dwarfed what these humans possessed. This would be her easiest victory yet. What Vexthera and her entire council failed to understand was that they had never encountered a species quite like humanity. They had conquered warrior races and advanced civilizations, but they had never faced beings who could transform from apparent weakness into unstoppable force through sheer determination and ingenuity. They had analyzed human technology but completely missed human adaptability. They had studied human physiology but ignored human psychology. The Zephyrian fleet began moving toward the Sol system 12 hours later, confident in their overwhelming superiority and certain of humanity's helplessness. They expected to find a primitive world cowering before their might. They were about to discover they had made the greatest strategic miscalculation in galactic military history. Humanity's explosive response captain, Elena Rodriguez, stood in the command center of the Denver Mountain Complex, watching the incoming threat assessment with grim satisfaction. The massive underground facility hummed with activity as hundreds of technicians, strategists, and military personnel prepared for what the alien invaders assumed would be humanity's final hours. "Contact in 6 hours," reported Lieutenant Commander Jong from his monitoring station. "Alien fleet maintaining standard approach vector. No deviation from predicted trajectory." Rodriguez nodded, her expression revealing nothing of the anticipation building in her chest. "Signal all departments. Operation Thunderstrike is now active. Send the go codes to London, Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. Tell them the guests are arriving exactly on schedule." What the Zephyrian Supreme Commander Vexthera didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over 30 years. Not because they had detected the alien fleet that had only happened 6 months ago, but because humans had always possessed one trait that consistently surprised other species: the ability to prepare for threats that didn't yet exist. The story began in 2157, when Dr. Sarah Chun's Deep Space Monitoring Array detected artificial signals from beyond the solar system. Not communications directed at Earth, but the electromagnetic signatures of massive industrial operations scattered across dozens of star systems. The discovery remained classified, shared only among a select group of scientists and military leaders who reached one terrifying conclusion: humanity was not alone, and their neighbors possessed technology that made human civilization look like children playing with sticks. Dr. Chen's final report to the Global Defense Initiative was simple. Rodriguez murmured to herself, recalling the classified document she had memorized years ago. "We can't match their technology, but we can surprise them with our ingenuity." The aliens were about to learn what 3 decades of desperate human innovation could accomplish. "Incoming transmission from Lunar Base," announced Communications Officer Torres. "Phantom Fleet reports all systems green and ready for deployment." Rodriguez smiled for the first time in months. Lunar Base was supposed to be humanity's most advanced space installation, clearly visible to any alien sensors as a research station, with basic defensive capabilities. What those sensors couldn't detect was the fleet of 300 stealth ships hidden within the moon's artificially carved internal chambers, or the fusion-powered mass drivers that could launch projectiles at 15% light speed. "Sir," interrupted Tactical Officer Williams, "alien fleet is beginning preliminary scans of Earth's orbital space." "Let them look," Rodriguez replied calmly. "They'll see exactly what we want them to see." The Zephyrian sensors detected obsolete communication satellites, primitive weather monitoring systems, and a few basic research stations. They completely missed the advanced cloaking systems hiding humanity's real defensive infrastructure, the quantum communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across the entire solar system, and the energy signatures masked by technology that made human stealth capabilities appear centuries more primitive than they actually were. "Contact in 2 hours," Jong updated. Alien formation maintaining attack posture. Rodriguez activated her command console, establishing secure connections with military leaders across the globe. Prime Minister Harrison in London, General Petrov in Moscow, Admiral Liu in Beijing, Marshal Tanaka in Tokyo, and Commander Santos in Sao Paulo, all appeared on her screen simultaneously. Ladies and gentlemen, Rodriguez began, 30 years of preparation are about to be tested. Our guests expect to find a primitive world. Let's show them what humans can do when we're properly motivated. The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace, precisely where human calculations predicted they would. 47 attack cruisers, 12 bombardment platforms, and 8 troop transports arranged in perfect battle formation. Their opening move was exactly what human strategists had anticipated. A comprehensive scan followed by targeted strikes on communication infrastructure. Sir Williams called out excitedly, "Enemy fleet is targeting our decoy satellites." Rodriguez watched the tactical display as Zephyrian energy beams destroyed dozens of obsolete satellites that had been specifically positioned to look like critical communication nodes. The aliens were methodically eliminating what they believed was humanity's ability to coordinate defensive responses. Phase 1 complete, she announced to the global command network. Alien forces believe they've crippled our communications. Initiate Phase 2. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The first indication that something was wrong came when sensors detected massive energy signatures emerging from Earth's surface. Not the primitive electromagnetic emissions they expected, but fusion-powered launches occurring simultaneously from over 200 locations across the planet. Multiple launch detected. Intelligence Officer Krellinen reported to Supreme Commander Vexthera with the first hint of concern in his voice. Energy signatures are ... unusual. The launches weren't missiles. They were humanity's real space fleet 400. Advanced fighters and 50 heavy cruisers that had been constructed in underground facilities and launched through vertical shafts that opened directly from the planet's surface. Each ship utilized technology that human scientists had developed specifically to counter alien advantages. Adaptive armor that learned from enemy weapons. Quantum-entangled targeting systems that made evasion impossible, and fusion reactors that could overload to create devastating directed explosions. "Sir," Tactical Officer Williams announced with barely controlled excitement, "Phantom Fleet is moving to intercept." Lunar Base reports, mass driver systems fully charged. The moon opened like a mechanical flower. Sections of the lunar surface retracted to reveal the hidden shipyards and weapon systems that humanity had spent 3 decades constructing. The Phantom Fleet 300 stealth ships, designed specifically for this moment, merged in perfect formation, their adaptive camouflage systems making them nearly invisible even at close range. But the real surprise came from Earth's surface itself. Initiating Olympus Protocol, Rodriguez announced, across the planet. What the aliens had identified as major population centers revealed their true nature. New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo weren't just cities, they were massive weapon platforms. The towering skyscrapers retracted into underground positions as fusion-powered particle accelerators emerged from concealed installations. Every major human settlement was actually a fortified military complex designed to look like civilian infrastructure. "Impossible," Supreme Commander Vexthera whispered as her tactical displays registered energy readings that exceeded anything in Zephyrian military databases. The Battle of Seoul, lasted exactly 17 minutes. Human ships moved with coordination. That suggested a single unified mind controlling every vessel simultaneously. Their weapon systems adapted to Zephyrian defenses in real time, learning and countering every alien tactic within seconds of its deployment. The mass drivers on Luna launched projectiles that struck with the force of nuclear weapons, but moved too fast for alien point defense systems to intercept. Most devastating of all was humanity's psychological warfare. As the alien fleet realized, they were not facing a primitive civilization, but a military force that had been specifically preparing to fight them for decades. Their carefully planned formation collapsed into chaos. Ships began fleeing in random directions. Commanders issued contradictory orders, and the unified Zephyrian assault became a desperate retreat. Alien flagship is attempting to withdraw, Williams reported. Negative, Rodriguez replied firmly. Open a channel to their command. Ship. Supreme Commander Vexthera's face appeared on the main screen, her forearms gesticulating frantically as she tried to comprehend what had just happened to her invincible fleet. Commander Rodriguez began pleasantly. I'm Captain Alina Rodriguez, of the Earth Defense Coalition. I believe you were expecting a primitive world that would surrender within 72 hours. Vexthera's mandibles clicked in what might have been fear or rage. This is impossible. Our intelligence indicated you possessed no advanced technology, no unified defense. No, you were looking at exactly what we wanted you to see, Rodriguez interrupted. You analyzed our weaknesses, but completely missed our strengths. You studied our technology, but ignored our adaptability. You counted our weapons, but never considered our determination. The tactical display showed the complete destruction of the Zephyrian invasion force. Of the 67 ships that had entered the Sol system, only Vexthera's command vessel remained intact. Asterisk. You will carry a message back to your galactic dominion, Rodriguez continued. Humanity is not interested in conquest, but we are absolutely committed to defending ourselves. Any future attempts at invasion will be met with escalating responses. We've had 30 years to prepare for you. How long do you think we'll need to prepare to visit you? As Vexthera's ship fled toward the edge of the solar system, human forces began the process of cleaning up the debris from what would become known as the shortest interstellar war in galactic history. The aliens had predicted humanity's defeat in days and accomplished it in moments. They just hadn't realized they would be the ones defeated. In the aftermath, as news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy, other civilizations began reevaluating their assumptions about this small blue planet and its supposedly primitive inhabitants. The Terran Gambit, as historians would later call it, became the template for how a seemingly weak civilization could defeat a technologically superior enemy through preparation, ingenuity, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Captain Rodriguez stood in the Denver Mountain Complex, watching the last traces of the alien fleet disappear from her sensors. 30 years of preparation had been tested in 17 minutes, and humanity had passed with flying colors. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander, Zhong asked quietly, what do we do now? Rodriguez smiled. Now, we prepare for their friends.